type in some of the bigger keywords that you would typically find about basement apartments or
Good morning.
or flips or whatever you're
Is it
doing
still morning?
rent to owns.
It's morning.
Work it back.
It is.
And at some point, you're going to
11 o'clock here for me.
Like if you realize out of the 10 keywords
Monday morning. And
you like the most,
I wanted to just sit here and see if anybody had anything to share or talk about or ask about to be able to have like an online momentum session for people building their portfolios. So I am always in growth mode, although maybe not always is it comfortable to be in growth mode. And I know I've done a video on that before about being in growth mode. But yes, so I came home from a beautiful walk on Saturday morning, and my husband had, let's see if you can see it. Oh, yep, there's the his paper up on our window where we always mastermind. And I realized that it's not just myself that is doing the growth process, but that people around me are realizing, well, hey, look at this girl. She's in total growth mode. I should be matching her. I could be matching her. But realize that I am being motivated by somebody else. So I had a gentleman the other day say that he wanted to have $100 million real estate portfolio value in 3 years. In 3 years. Now, in my mind, I was like, what? How is that? How could somebody even do that? It's a hard concept for me even to visualize. And I tried to go, okay, by 1, by 2, by 3, by 4, and he won't get to it that way. But he's not thinking small. He's not thinking himself and what he can do. He is creating these teams and he's allowing it to be organic. He's growing, but he's not stuck to an actual, this is what's happening and next and next and next. Okay, it's not transactional. It's big picture thinking. Big picture thinking. So I went, it was a great opportunity. I went and I updated my net worth statement, okay, which is a great place for everybody to start. In real estate, as we are growing our portfolio, we're taking money out of a property, potentially, right, your HELOC, or refinancing it out of your primary residence, and you're investing it. So to some degree, you're like, whoa, but now I'm going to have this mortgage on my house. And I don't like a bigger mortgage, so why would I want a bigger mortgage? And they're like, wait a minute here. But you're using that money to invest, and you're taking it and you're buying another asset. And that asset will grow in value as well as your primary residence, okay? Or wherever you get this funds, okay? So a little story about Larry and I. When we started, we bought a property, and we took a second mortgage off of our house to be able to buy that property. And we refinanced that property. We did a renovation on property number 1. I call this property number 1. Property number 1, we did a really quick turnaround renovation. In 20 days, plopped in a new tenant and refinanced it, okay? We pulled out $50,000 in 20 days. And it does happen. Those things do happen. But here's where people get held up, okay? Most people would not refinance that first house because the cash flow on that first house only was $46 a month. Property number 1, if I refinanced it up to the max 80% loan to value, which the bank was going to be allowing me, when I did my numbers on rental income, maintenance, expenses, taxes, insurance, I would only have cash flowed $46. So against the advice of my coach said, no, don't do it. Actually, a couple coaches said, no, don't do it. It's not enough. And a lot of times as new investors, we silo our investments and say, oh my gosh, this property doesn't cash flow very well. I can't do anything with it or however. So, but keep in mind, I didn't listen to my coaches because I was in growth mode. And I had some backups. So I had a line of credit that was just sitting there. And I thought, if anything goes wrong with this property, I know that $46 a month is not enough, but I have this backup line of credit for $5,000. I think it was, probably given to me when I was 20 years old and never used it, but never had it closed down. So it's still sitting there. And so I thought, if anything goes wrong with property number one, I have this line of credit that I could have as backup. So we refinanced that property to the max. Okay. And we bought property number two. Property number two now. Property number two was a full renovation. In 3 months, we were able to refinance out $25,000 of that property. But property number two cash flowed at $450 a month. So property number one, I'll round it to $50 a month. Property number two at $450 a month, plus the fact that I was able to refinance out another $25,000. Follow? So now I kind of have, if I hadn't refinanced property number one, I wouldn't have property number two. And so I kind of looked at this and thought, now there's $500 a month cash flow. If something goes wrong with property number one, I am going to have to kind of cover the costs from property number one to property number two. Follow? Well, remember, I have $25,000 back that I have recycled out of these two properties. And I actually found a property that offered me a 10% vendor take back, a $250,000 property with a 10% vendor take back. So the only amount required for the down payment was $25,000. Now I did need to come up with some closing costs, and that's something different, but really that $25,000 was able to be recycled now onto property number three. Guess how much property number three cash flowed at? $1,000 a month. Okay, so now I have property number two at $50, we'll say, property number two at $450, and property number three at $1,000. So together, 1, 2, and 3 made $1,500 a month cash flow. Okay, but keep in mind that if I hadn't refinanced property number one, I wouldn't have property number two. If I hadn't refinanced number two, I wouldn't have number three. Okay, so sometimes we try and silo our investments to be able to say that this investment needs to pay for itself 100%. But you forgot that you got the money from number two, or you forgot that you got the money from property number one. So there are times that you kind of have to look at your portfolio as a portfolio, and one will cover another, and one as a tenant that's messing you up for income, and you go back to the other couple properties. And as you grow, you are creating reserve funds for individual properties. But I want you to understand that everybody's in a different point of their investment portfolio. Are you in growth mode? And if you're in growth mode, you need to refinance these properties. Now, again, I will say to people, don't refinance that $50,000 and go buy a boat, right? I live on Georgian Bay here in Midland. And I don't suggest that people go and buy a boat, because everybody in Midland has a boat, okay? Because that's not how you get your money to make money for you. Now, I mean, some people say, well, I charter my boat or whatever. Well, sure, then that's a different story. But we're talking real estate here. So if you refinance that and you get out $50,000, this is not to pay off a credit card. This is not to pay off a line of credit. This is not to put down on your home. This is to be able to buy another cash-producing asset. And then another cash-producing asset. So we had in our property number one was December 2nd closing. And property number three was a December 15th closing of the following year. Okay, so we had bought property number one, renovated it, refinanced it, bought property number two, renovated it, refinanced it, and had bought property number three, all within, a 12 month plus 15-day timeline. So just kind of keep that in mind. That's my momentum tip for today, to be able to say, what mode are you in? And if you're in growth mode, because you're starting out and it's great time. It's a great time to be investing in real estate. Don't let interest rates or market conditions or, the naysayers or the changes in the landlord tenant board or the fair housing market, whatever. Okay. Don't let any of those things fool you from realizing that we are still in a great market to be buying a crap load of real estate. So that's me, Mandy Brenham, signing off. If you would like a an individual momentum session, please don't hesitate. Reach out to me. I'd be happy to be able to discuss some terms with you and set that conference call up. I do it over all kinds of platforms, so it doesn't really matter where we are, guys. MandyBrenham.com. Have a great Monday.